if we lose all your recording and you're unable to re-record new answers to the old questions like a week later, we have to cast someone to play you to make up answers to these questions in badly reconstructing this episode. What kind of voice do you want this actor who's going to portray you to have?
Kind of like Kermit the Frog, I think.
Oh, he can talk up here.
Yeah, that's my natural voice, I think.
Hey-ho, I'm Casey Maloney, and welcome to Talking Joe. Yeah!
Wow.
Live from the Talking Joe studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, you, the Rocksteady crew. It's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. If you are new to the show, you can find out all of the details over at the website, which is talkingjoe.co.uk. Today, we will be looking at G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 289, which came out just this very week at time of recording. Coming out, yes, 23rd of February 2022. And this issue is a spotlight on Dawn and Helix. Joining me, as always, it's A Real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners.
Excellent to have you with us once again, but let's not chit-chat because we've got another person waiting in the wings. Joining us today is a very special guest. It is the artist of the issue, Casey Maloney. Now here is the intro. Casey Maloney is an artist living in Ventura, California with his daughter and cat. He creates creator-owned comics called Bird Brains, and outside of that, also creates art in all mediums: paint, pencil, pen and ink, digital, covering landscapes, portraits, and abstract. But in the world of comics, his credits are mostly IDW. They include Star Trek: The Next Generation, The Space Between, Star Trek: Infestation, and a few comics with Tom Waltz, Zipper, from 2008, The Last Fall, 2014, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Annual from 2021, and over in the world of G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie adaptation from 2009, Snake Eyes Cobra Civil War, 6 to 8 from 2011, which introduced Quinn to the IDW universe, and the cover for G.I. Joe issue 281, depicting Snake Eyes and Scarlet date night at the shooting range. So yeah, a good pedigree there in G.I. Joe, even if not covering the main Larry Hama written book so far. So, welcome to the show, Casey.
Thank you very much. You guys do all your research, don't you? That's good information.
I do like to do a nice little bit of homework.
Oh, nice.
Was there any career highlights there to date that I missed out in my research?
No, that's about it. I'm pretty sporadic, honestly, in the comic book industry, but I love it.
Excellent. You sort of dip into the world of comics alongside other work.
Yeah, lots of art, just art in general.
Art in general, and some of that in the Venn diagram is comics.
Mm-hmm.
The other art that you're making, is this illustration freelance for clients? Is this gallery work? Where, besides maybe the internet, where might someone see your work if it's not comics?
I have a website, CaseyMaloneyArt.com. Not to do a plug right now, but lots commissions for friends. I do just make paintings for myself, and then sometimes they will sell by themselves too. But yeah, it's just pretty much for me mostly, and sometimes it helps me out in life. But yeah, lots of commissions too. I'm working on a couple right now, like painting commissions, which is fun. I haven't painted in a while.
Very good. So typically at this point, we'll ask for your origin story. So in terms of your history with Joe, the G.I. Joe comics, the G.I. Joe toys in your youth, was that something that featured? And alongside that, your art development, what was it in both G.I. Joe and art that led you to the point today where you've been drawing G.I. Joe issue 289? So where did it begin for you, both in G.I. Joe and art?
I was born in the 80s, so it was definitely around me and influenced me, and I had some toys and stuff, and I watched the comic. I'm not too diehard about it, but it was definitely part of my upbringing. I didn't read much of the comics or anything. I've been making comics my whole life, basically. Like, I do a lot of art, but comics are kind of where I'm at, I would say, my main focus. Just storytelling in general. But I would say definitely the comic and just like the 80s in general, like Transformers, G.I. Joe, all that definitely influenced my taste and style, you know, like you can't help it. But I'm definitely happy to be drawing G.I. Joe. It's super fun. I would like to draw Transformers too.
Was there a particular book or publisher that you were drawn to in the comics world when you were sort of picking them up in those formative years?
I'm definitely a Marvel guy, to be honest. I do like DC, but I was brought up on Marvel and X-Men and stuff like that. And Jim Lee is a huge influence, or used to be. I try to not have style influences right now, just drawing what happens. But all that, like Image, all that, I don't know how you guys feel about Image and stuff, but it was fun when you were, you know, a little teenager reading comics.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably not too far away in terms of ages, but that sort of Image launch when they initially sort of broke off,
the 90s.
Mostly from their Marvel books that they were doing at the time, those hot artists. It was a very exciting time for comics.
I mean, they're silly and stuff, but they're really fun.
I think you couldn't help be swayed at that point to you know, be excited by kind of the Image as a new publisher and what they were doing.
Yeah, but I definitely like Marvel. Still, Marvel's definitely I like a lot. IDW, of course, I like.
So you mentioned a moment ago that though you are a kid of the 80s and read some comics, it sounds like did you say weren't watching the G.I. Joe cartoon or weren't reading the comic?
I didn't read the comics. I saw some of the cartoons and stuff, you know, just like on Saturday mornings. And I had some of the toys and stuff, but I didn't get too far into it. Like that and Mask and Transformers and stuff like that I was into, and Star Wars toys and all that stuff.
Yeah, so big melting pot of all of those 80s properties.
Yeah, yeah, it's a melting pot for sure. A stew.
Did you go to art school?
No,
Did you train?
Self-taught pretty much. I mean, I went to like community college and had some art teachers there and art teachers in high school, and I credit them a lot. Everyone's been an influence in my life, art teacher or not. But not formally trained or anything. I read a lot of books and stuff and just draw all day. So that's all you can really do, I think. It'd be cool to go to college for all that stuff. And like right now I'm learning a lot of 3D programs and just based off YouTube, and it's working and stuff, but it'd be cool to have an education, honestly. Go to school, kids. I'll say that.
That's a good segue. I spotted what looked to be a 3D model of a Arah, possibly Snake Eyes sword.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
On your ArtStation site. Is that something that you created just for fun?
Yeah, I just did it for fun. I have these old ideas and I want to see if I can make them in 3D, and I just learn as I go. But that was really cool. I just wanted to make a cool sword and stuff. I was actually working on like a kind of like a 3D model of Helix, just to like work just for fun while I was waiting for a script. And I was just working on like her costume and stuff and just seeing how to model it in 3D. The whole body thing didn't come out very well, but the sword came out really cool, so I focused on that.
Was that 3D model of Helix something that you ended up using as a tool when you were actually drawing the book?
It definitely helped me. It was actually Snake Eyes. I don't know if I said Helix, sorry, but it was Snake Eyes, Don. But it did help with like the mask and stuff, like the visor and everything, because that's it's a tricky little thing, surprisingly. But I mean, you can make it not tricky, but I like to make things somewhat realistic as much as I can. But it helped me cement her costume in my head. It's kind of like just sketching it, over and over again and get muscle memory. Just a little tool for myself.
There's a it's not, I don't know if it's a geodesic dome, but there's a dome in the issue.
Yeah, definitely geodesic.
Okay, so that is the word. And it looks so perfectly drawn that it looks a little bit like in one or two panels like a 3D model. Is that?
You guys are good. I did 3D model that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Good eye.
So when did you first decide that you wanted to get paid to draw comics that someone would publish, and what was that first job?
My first job, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 20 or so. It was like I went to Comic-Con and I got a portfolio review with Committed Comics. I don't know if they're still around or not. They might not be. And they just gave me he gave me a good critique, actually. He had lots of pointers in my portfolio and storytelling tips and stuff. And Eric Doherty was his name, or Tom Doherty. Then they gave me a job for, like, I think it was a 3-issue little thing. Gosh, what was it called? Redemption or something? I forget what it was called, honestly. But it's Committed Comics. It was like, I don't know, might have been like 2000 or something like that. That was definitely my first job. I don't know when I decided that. I think I always wanted it to be my career, to be honest with you. I never really had any doubt about that. But that was my first job.
How did you parlay that into bigger and better comics work, or how did you get to IDW?
That's all Tom, honestly. Like, I'm not good at selling myself. Like, I'm not a businessman or a salesman or anything like that. So most of my stuff has been generous of Tom. Like, there was a site, I don't know if you guys know, Digital Webbing Forums and Comics and stuff.com. It's like a little comic site, but they have a forum and they had like contests, and I drew this picture of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fighting Daredevil. And he hit me up, and he's like, "Oh, this is really good. I got some script for you." And we hooked up, and then hooked up with iHero Comics, which was like a kind of like a digital comics kind of thing, but they had published comics too. And I think that morphed into Shooting Star Comics, or I don't know which one came before. And yeah, we just kind of worked together on stuff like that. Lots of Tom's characters and stories, short stories and stuff. Some prose, like illustrating prose. And eventually we did Children of the Grave for Shooting Star Comics, and that was like a 4-issue miniseries, and that kind of cemented both of us, I think. And eventually IDW reprinted that as a graphic novel, and eventually Tom got a job writing, and then he worked his way up to editor and stuff. And so eventually, he hooks me up sometimes, so I'm very grateful. And that's, that's pretty much definitely the trajectory, like the paths of my career and his career are kind of strangely linked, or they used to be at least.
Mm-hmm. And the work on G.I. Joe, is that something that you actively sought out, or was it more a case of someone reaching out to you and saying, "Look, we've got this coming up. Is it something that you might be interested in?"
Tom just hit me up and he asked if I would be interested, and I said yes. No hesitation, of course.
Going back though to the 3 issues of Snake Eyes and the movie adaptation, because that's now more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What about those? That was Tom Waltz as well.
Yeah, definitely Tom Waltz there too. Like I said, I'm really bad at the business side of things, so I kind of wait for things to come to me in a way. It's not good.
I guess the movie adaptation is kind of a fascinating thing. Just
it is, right?
The genre.
It's interesting
of a movie adaptation in itself. And as we're recording today, there's just been a news announcement that Marvel are going to produce a comics adaptation of The Mandalorian.
Oh, really?
1 issue per episode, and it seems a kind of a slightly old-fashioned concept. I think some of the appeal of that movie adaptation is back in the day when you'd go to the cinema. You didn't have VHS, and not even we didn't even have VHS, let alone a DVD or Blu-ray or a streaming. Yeah. And so then the comic was kind of the only way that you could watch read or relive the movie experience. If between that and the next time you are lucky enough to find it on TV or on when it eventually comes out on video or whatever, and Star Wars by Howard Chaykin, sort of one of the ultimate examples of that. We've had some amazing examples of adaptations like John Bolton's work on Army of Darkness, and some maybe less so amazing examples such as
write that down.
the T2 adaptation, which I imagine was done very quickly.
I was just watching that last night, actually.
Yeah, I definitely recommend the movie of T2 over the comics adaptation.
Good to know.
So what was the process of working on the Rise of Cobra adaptation like? What materials were you working from? Did you have the actual whole film, or was it just a series of photos, or what?
It was just photos. Yeah, I didn't have script, I had the comic script, and I didn't have any film or anything. They just sent a bunch of, I think, digital. Yeah, I don't think I had any analog pictures, but it was just a bunch of digital files from the set, like not even like straight from the film. It's just like on the set pretty much stuff, which is actually really
wow.
interesting. Like, I didn't see the movie while I was drawing the movie. So it was a really fun challenge, actually. I enjoyed it. Because I could kind of like not really make it my own, but I'm not tethered down to reference.
Yeah, it's not like you're just hitting pause and then just reproducing that bit of the actual film. It's I guess more involved than that.
Yeah, it made it more fun, I would say.
I'm going to throw in a fact here. So the comic adaptation was written by Denton Tipton, who was an editor at the time at IDW, and he did have the screenplay to the movie.
Oh, he did? Yeah, I figured. Like, it's pretty close. Like, after I did see the movie after it came out, and I was like, oh, wow, I think we got it pretty right, surprisingly.
I know that he had the screenplay because he showed it to me.
Yeah, that guy's professional, man. That guy's great.
Fun fact, actually. He showed it to me, and for some reason I turned to the final page, and I spoiled the end of the movie long before the movie. This was a couple months before the movie came out.
Yeah, I spoiled the end of the movie by watching the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't look at the end of anything. Right when I pick it up, I'm like, I'm scared of it.
So, how does it compare drawing a Chuck Dixon G.I. Joe script or plot to a Larry Hama G.I. Joe plot?
Definitely just Larry Hama's way looser, like it's way fun, I would say. I'm not going to like play favorites, but I definitely like a loose script, like room, not to make it my own, but to have fun with it. And like, just like with the movie adaptation, like, kind of, use my creativity a little bit, which is what Larry Hama's, loose plot format does. It's like the Marvel way, of the, like, kind of letting the artist do it, then filling it in later after all the art's done. It's old school, kind of old school, I would say.
Hama's writing dialogue on top of your art after it's drawn, which you draw from his plot.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Is that to say that Chuck Dixon's those 3 issues of Snake Eyes, were you working from a full script?
I believe so. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I definitely remember it being very well, calculated and laid out and stuff, and no holes or anything, and definitely a very complete script.
Right.
And when we've been talking to Joe artists, there sort of it has tended to be a sort of a common theme of there being a little bit of a burning wick, leading up to an explosion of the deadline.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know, to what degree that sort of same time pressure applied to here. What was the gap between you actually finishing this book and it hitting the stands?
I hit the stands like not too far after I finished it. I got, if you want like a timeline, I think I started drawing in like mid-November. I definitely took over a month, for sure. And then I finished like right after New Year's. And then it came out this Wednesday, February 23rd.
Okay.
But yeah, I was definitely, there's some waiting around and stuff. And then they waited for me, of course. I'm definitely a slow artist. It's definitely something I want to work on, but I'm uncompromising is how I say.
When did you get the offer to draw the issue, and were you given any choice as to which issue you might draw?
No choice on the issue. It definitely said, I think it might have been vague at first, like, do you want to draw G.I. Joe? And then later on, it's like, we're going to do 289. And I have to go back to my emails to see when I got the script. It was definitely a ways, like maybe at least a month or two. I'm not sure.
Were you trying to keep to a drawing schedule, like 1 page per day?
I usually do about a page every 2 days. Sometimes I can do a page a day. It depends on the page too. And then there are the holidays and stuff, and Christmas, which kind of slows me down every year. But yeah, I can't do a page a day sometimes, unfortunately.
And what's your typical process for approaching a page? What materials do you use? Is it all analog, all digital, a mixture of both?
Definitely a mix. I use digital mostly for sketches and stuff, and like thumbnailing and layouts. I guess I can walk you through that. I usually take the scripts and just draw little images that flash in my head as I'm working on it, and then I'll take those images and do like little thumbnails of the page layouts and stuff, and see which direction all the action's going and which way the dialogue's going. And then I will Usually if I get like a good little thumbnail, I'll scan that in and blow it up and then print it out a little bigger and then just tighten that up with pencils, just draw over it, then scan that in. And then I'll blow that up to 11 by 17, the comic book size. And then I'll just do final pencils on a comic book paper with a light box over the rough layout.
There is, Mark, there's a totally awesome photo on Casey's Instagram. A photo from 2 days ago, which is 20 penciled pages of this issue. All 20 penciled pages of this issue laid out on a bed or a floor or a couch.
Yeah, that's my bed.
A grid of 5 by 4 pages. Okay. This is not your first time collaborating with Maria Keene, who inked this issue.
No, the first one was that the TMNT annual. Sorry, I have a hard time saying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles all the time. That was what'd you say? That was last year?
Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time I worked with her or met her and everything. But I like working with her a lot. I think we make a good team.
Did Tom Waltz pair you two?
Yes.
Okay. You had not been any kind of collaborative team before this G.I. Joe issue, this Ninja Turtles issue.
No, not me and her. I think the only person that I've like somewhat worked with is like Jay Brown coloring the 281 cover. But everyone else I don't think I've worked with. I'm not sure about the letter. I'll have to check that, but no disrespect. I love letters.
Was there any scheduling possibility or desire on your part to not just pencil, but also ink this issue?
I offered to ink at first, and then he said, we're going to have a tight deadline, so I'll pair you up with Maria again. Because she definitely speeds me up a bit. But it would be fun to ink. I love inking so much.
I guess, it means that you can work in parallel rather than sequential, so that you've done a page and then she's inking it and you don't have to, it's not a matter of producing everything and then repeat. It's working at the same
it's
time.
Got that assembly line.
Yeah, getting that nice Gantt chart flowing a bit quicker.
She's super fast too. She's in England, so I would send.
Oh, is she? I didn't know that.
So I would send it out, and then she would ink while I'm sleeping, or we're all sleeping over here, and then in the morning it'd be ready. So it's crazy. She's really fast. Another pro.
She is inking from scans of your pencils. You still have your pencils.
Yeah, I think she has been all digital so far on all my stuff so far. But she does do traditional inks, but not on the Ninja Turtles or this G.I. Joe comic. They were digital. I would send the scans, and she would send them back.
Do you have a local comic book store where you could go and take a victory lap this week?
I was thinking about it, but I'm a shy guy. I'm very hermit. But I do go to the comic shop.
I don't
know who I am or anything.
I don't mean like well, if not take a loud, public, obnoxious victory lap, a quiet, personal one. Did you go to your shop this week to see your comic on?
No, I was thinking about I was going to take my kid and stuff because she likes to see that too. But we'll probably go maybe tomorrow or something.
I'm going back to my store today and tomorrow. Maybe I'll take a picture of what it
looks
like.
Please, yeah. It's fun seeing them out in the wild for sure. It's a kick.
Did you have a comic shop growing up? How? Because it sounds like you were somewhat into comics in the 80s. What was your comic shop?
It's still around. Well, it's kind of a different vibe now, but it was Ralph's Comic Corner in Ventura, California, and me and my brother would ride our bikes down there. It's like kind of like Midtown, and we would just spend all our money. I still have all my comics too. I think my parents have them at their house somewhere, but yeah, we'd go down there all the time and spend our money and read comics. And now it's Seth's Comic Corner, and there's like a gaming center too. It's actually expanded. It's really nice. It's a nice shop. But I also go to Arsenal Comics in Ventura, which is, they're both really good. I'm appreciative of the local businesses.
Sounds like you have at least 3 places to tour on your quiet, personal, modest victory lap.
It's growing
today,
and growing.
Tomorrow, the next day.
I'll go in there and I'll take a look, but I'm not going to talk to anybody. It comes back to that business thing. If I was a good businessman, I would say, hey, my comic's coming out. Can I do a signing and stuff like that? But yeah.
The month that you were drawing this issue, were there other art projects or jobs you were juggling such that hitting this deadline was also was more stressful than just a normal deadline?
No, I didn't. I pretty much dedicated myself
I don't mean
to this one.
Okay. This is not to say that drawing 20 pages in 20 days or 30 days is
it
easy.
should be very possible. It is possible for lots of people, and I'm amazed by it. Like, I don't know how people do it. But yeah, I definitely cleared my slate for this, and it was nice. It was really fun. Good experience.
I was thinking about sort of your art style, and particularly in this book, and it kind of feels like it sort of falls somewhere in the middle of a few of sort of the key recent G.I. Joe artists that sort of, you know, not a million miles away from the S.L. Gallant and Robert Atkins, and sort of possibly with a bit of that leaning towards Billy Penn's slightly more cartooning that we saw in a recent issue as well. So it's sort of somewhere in the middle of all of that. Is this what you know? Would you call your natural style, or were you kind of trying to adapt it to in inverted commas G.I. Joe style?
I would definitely, it's definitely natural style. I'm not really conscious about style. It's more about storytelling. I'm not gonna like do like super cartoony anything, like, because this G.I. Joe, and like I'm hired to draw G.I. Joe. I'm gonna not make it super crazy or anything. I used to draw more realistic, I would say, back like how I was saying, influenced by like Jim Lee, so it's all cross hatching and shadows. But kind of painting has influenced me a lot too, where there's not really any black in the world, like the color black. It's all just different shades of light. So I don't use heavy blacks that much anymore. That would make drawing actually easy, because, you know, heavy blacks are kind of a shortcut. But I don't do much cross hatching anymore either, unless I need like a specific gradient somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking about this myself. It's quite a kind of open, uncluttered style. I guess I'd say.
Cool. That's good. That's kind of what I'm going for. But it's also for efficiency reasons too, I feel like. I mean, there are shortcuts like the heavy blacks and stuff, but if you're cross hatching everything, then that's just going to take longer and stuff, and no one really appreciates it, I would say, unless it's like David Finch or something, or Jim Lee. But it's just not important to my art, so I kind of cut that out. But yeah, I'd say my style. I mean, I do like manga and stuff, like Katsuhiro Otomo from Akira and stuff like that. Definitely a huge influence in my life. But I don't really draw manga or anime, like stuff like that. Or I'm kind of working on like create your own, like, it's kind of cartoony, but it's not even cartoony. It's weird. I don't know. Yeah, I would say a middle of the road, I guess. Kind of a nice little mix of everything.
Yeah, and I guess that point you said about kind of storytelling sort of comes across in terms of on this issue, there's quite a clarity about following the story, and it's not, you know, not overly cluttered, and it's not hampered by trying to be too clever about, you know, flashy panel layouts and stuff. It's something that we've discussed here a few times, that sometimes the more, you know, the more flashy styles and sort of inverted commas clever kind of panel compositions and stuff can sometimes be to the detriment of actually the clarity of following the story.
Yeah, I'll slant some of those panels and stuff like you see in this issue.
Yeah, we got a few sort of wedges and triangles.
But they're for, like, you know, a reason. They're not just thrown in there for fun. It's definitely for emotion and drama and stuff. And
or the panel where the casino dealer robot, where a missile pops out of its wrist. That panel is triangular shaped, but that matches the composition drawn within the panel.
Exactly. It's supposed to guide your eye where the story needs your eye to go. It's form follows function, I would say, with me. Like, storytelling comes first, and the drawings are based upon that storytelling.
When did you draw the cover? What were your marching orders for the cover? And what did you ink the cover with?
Actually, that's a the cover is a good guide into when I started this, because I drew the cover a long time before I got the script. So let me look up when I drew that.
Yeah, I remember I saw the cover ages ago. It was like the middle of last year or something.
Yeah, I drew the cover a long time. I remember seeing the first solicitation came out, and I didn't have any script yet. I was like, uh-oh. So it looks like I was working on the cover in July. Wow, oh my God. I use usually Micron pens. I actually have Rapidograph or whatever, Koei Noir technical pens that I really like, but they're divas. They're very hard to maintain.
Do you ink with a Rapidograph pen?
The lines sometimes, but because I like the ink better.
Oh, straight lines.
Yeah.
Straight lines.
But for
Okay.
organic lines, I use usually brush or a felt tip brush pen that I really like, because I like that because you can do long lines without having to refill the brush. But I just got into those like the past couple of years. But I'm still trying to find a good one that has a really dark ink, because they're all kind of, I don't know, they're not as dark as I would like, opaque.
Because I'm holding a Micron right now, and I'm co-hosting the show, and I don't have to listen to this later on, like all of our listeners do. What size Microns are you inking this cover with?
It's usually a 0.5.
I'm holding.
Yeah, that's like the average one, and then a 0.8 usually for like thick lines if I need it. Sometimes I'll go down to a 0.3 for detail, but it's usually 0.5. That's usually middle of the road. And then a lot of it's brush, though. Like, I try to use as much brush as possible just to get that nice flow.
Right.
And if you want the brush pens, I use a Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen.
I don't know anything about brush
They're
pens, but hopefully some of our listeners are enjoying that
They're
detail.
very convenient. They're great, too. I would recommend them for sure.
I'm thinking about the timeline. If you drew the cover in July, it was so that presumably they could solicit the book in late July or August. Shops order 2 months ahead, so that puts us to September, November. And we know that this book is a little late. So right now it feels like you drawing this in July is like really early or a long time ago.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Sort of like in the like not quite pandemic or supply chain affected publishing schedule of IDW. Drawing this cover in July sounds about right.
Yeah, doing the forensics.
I think there's probably slightly more to it than that as well, Tim. That they were sort of getting to the end of Murder by Assassination and sort of making an announcement about the next arc, which they're calling the Spotlight. So they kind of announced a lot of it all together rather than kind of the more normal standard solicit issue. So we towards the end of the Murder by Assassination arc, we got quite a good line of sight into the most of the next arc. So I think we found out about this fair ahead of its actual official solicit window.
Yeah, they prepared very well.
Would you, Casey? So Maria Keene, who inked this issue digitally. Would you consider drawing a comic book in Procreate or in Photoshop?
I made a transition to digital kind of if you read the last fall from IDW, me and Tom's creator-owned work, which we really want to return to someday. The first issue was inked and stuff, and then about halfway through the second issue, I finally got a Wacom Cintiq tablet. So I ended up drawing the rest of that series on digitally. And you can kind of see it, because just like, pens just have that rougher texture, and the paper texture, of course. But I learned a lot on that book too, in terms of process and stuff. But now I like to have the finished project be analog, but I'll use any tools available to me to get to that point.
Do you sell your art? Will you sell this art?
Yeah, a lot of the covers get sold, and I've had some interest already in the interior cover or pages from a couple sources. So, so that pictures of the pages is bait for anybody. Yeah, it's on the bedroom. It's like it's a boudoir picture,
A game that I play when I see something like this, someone posts every page from an issue, I ask myself, okay, if I could only buy one page, what page would I buy? This issue, there are no splash pages.
That's true, huh?
Every page has at least 2 panels.
I didn't think about that.
And most of them have at least 3. And G.I. Joe usually has a splash page and sometimes 2. And there were issues in the 120s, 130s where oftentimes you turn the first page and page 2, 3 was a splash spread with the title and credits. Since there are no splashes in this issue, and not that I would necessarily nab the splash, but it's sort of like what issue has the most the most clever storytelling? I don't not Mark's use of clever, overly flashy. I mean sort of precise and careful storytelling, or just a very sensitive pose or a bit of body language. And looking at this photo that's on your Instagram of every page, I am leaning towards, in this hypothetical buy, page 7, which is where 6, 7, where Dawn kicks the gun out of the cop's hand, tosses her rifle to Helix, and then they walk they walk through the gate, because it's got both of them. You can see both of their costumes. But I really like how the camera is high in the first panel, low in the second and third panels, a little low in the fourth panel, and sort of low again in the fifth panel. It's the POV in this, and the whole issue is thoughtful and clear.
Yeah, I got rules that I live by. I don't think they're hurting. It makes it a little difficult sometimes, but like I said, the form follows the function. If I have a challenge, usually it helps in a way to narrow it down. I'm not dealing with infinite possibilities of what to draw. It's these people have to say these things in this order. I have to have these items in this panel. I need these characters in the panel. It's what do I need to show the reader? And then it all works out in the end usually. But that was a really fun page. I like the page or the panel where they're running towards the dome. It's very, I don't know, you picture a guitar solo going right there or something, wee. And
you know what, actually I feel like maybe I picked the obvious one, because while there is no full page splash in this issue, that panel at the bottom with Helix and Dawn walking toward us, since they are unobstructed and full figured, you can see all of them and you can see all their costume. I feel like that's actually the page that a fan would go towards, an art dealer, the guys who sell original art online would call that out. It's you buy a page of Batman, you want the
you want to know you got a Batman
page where a 2/3, not the back of his head, in the Batmobile, and then a couple bystanders talking. So you know what I think? I think I'm gonna let someone else buy this page.
Nah, thanks for hyping it up.
In this hypothetical buy, I think I might go for the next page actually, because I personally like drawing backgrounds more than drawing
that
figures.
Background was rough.
And this whole factory thing inside the geodesic dome, the blonde salesperson is presenting to Mindbender and our
yeah, and you almost
CG.
got full body shot. Well, I guess you do full body shots of everybody in that page too.
Then we check back in with Dawn and Helix on the roof, actually doing the business of
using that wrench,
sneaking into this, using the wrench, right? Which answers a question, because a page earlier I wrote, "What's Dawn got?"
I did not.
And I drew.
Just to be honest, I hated that wrench. I was like, okay, I got to make sure I got this wrench in all these panels. You see it in panel 1, page 1, and it's got to be there the whole time.
Very specific wrench. Were you given reference?
Yeah.
Use this wrench.
It's pretty much what I think Larry actually picks out a lot of the reference himself. I got some files, so that was very helpful. This
is a geodesic structure panel wrench.
Yeah. It was it's a wrench.
Do you have one of those in the back
usually.
of the vamp?
It's a tank wrench for treads on tanks. Yeah.
Oh right.
So it's very
wow.
He knows all his military stuff, of course, so he knows exactly what he wants.
The cop who follows them, McGovern. Did the plot call out that this character might resemble someone, or did you decide that this character might?
No, he just kind of came out of me.
Okay,
just
some
evolved
guy.
over the sketches and like, okay, this is what he looks like. Yeah, just some guy. But he did specifically say his name is McGovern, and he wanted to see it on the name tag, but he wanted the name tag on the panel where Don kicks a gun out of his hand. You can kind of see it. I don't know if it made it through. It's probably too small, but
It is too small.
But I put it in as soon as I could and got a close shot of him because you don't have any close shots of him, I feel like.
Yeah, I noticed it. Yeah, in the first appearance, as I was doing
That's
my
good.
notes. Yeah,
That's a good thing.
Go on there. So it feels like we're well and truly getting into the
Yeah, we
issue.
can't wait.
So let's officially get started.
Cool. This sounds fun.
Comic talk, oh, comic talk. Larry Hama writes them, Tim and Mark discuss them, whoa. Comic talk, oh, comic talk. Larry Hama writes them, Tim and Mark discuss them, whoa.
Okay, so this is issue 289, released just this week, gone in February. Writer, as always, Larry Hama. Artist, Casey Maloney. Inks, Maria Keane. Colours, Jay Brown. Letters, Neil Utake. Senior editor, Tom Waltz. Editor, Megan Brown. And research specialist, Diana Davis.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
We have been inundated by covers this month. We have got 8 covers of the book this time, so let's sort of skip by them fairly quickly because otherwise we'll be here all day. I'll just do a run through of what we've got. Cover A is a continuation of the Freddie Williams multi-part cover. This time it's Flint and Jinx, with the Flint and Jinx's eyeballs looking fairly white there, sort of almost blanked out, which is a little bit eerie for me, but there we go. Cover B is the Casey Maloney cover with colours by Jay Brown. Cover RI is Kenneth Lowe with Dawn and Helix, again themed to this story. He did the backup stories for the what's it called? Silent
Option.
I'm a big fan
Silent
of
Option
Kenneth Lowe, by the way.
miniseries.
Shout out to him. I like his style a lot.
And then the retailer exclusives, we've got Clan McDonald by Nathan. What does that say? Nathan. How would you say that, Tim?
Shirty.
Thank you. With Baroness, fairly by the books. Baroness 2 by John Yang. Retailer exclusives for Eastside Comics, a quite in-your-face close-up of
Pun
Destro in his... Pardon?
I said pun intended.
With his regular outfit, and then the Pimp Daddy Destro accompanying it. We've got Kirill Ripin, retailer exclusive again for Eastside Comics of Baroness, framed by a full moon, and then a VA Comic Con retailer exclusive cover with art by Larry Hama and Steve Lealola, with Snake Eyes and Timber flanked by Storm Shadow in his V1 Cobra outfit. Tim, do you want to sort of highlight some of your thoughts on these?
Yeah. So in previous episodes, I've talked about the odd compositions that you get from taking a 3-part or 4-part or 5-part cover, like the Freddie Williams II G.I. Joe images we've been getting for a couple issues, where it works together as a single poster, or if it was all on one comic book and it was the front cover, back cover, and then it folded out to show the rest of the image. But when you chop it up, any one cover by itself is awkward. And the example that I have is from 1993. DC did a Legion of Superheroes spinoff called Legionnaires, and issues 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6 were a 5-part connecting cover and they were all drawn by Chris Sprouse, who was the interior artist on that series, and inked by Carl Story. And each of them on their own is like a good cover, and one of them's a great cover. But issue 4 in particular, it just has all this weird negative space that like is screaming for 3 more characters or some copy. So nothing new to add for the Freddie Williams II cover. Casey Maloney's cover, to me, is actually the cover of this issue, right? I prefer that cover A be the thing that best illustrates the interior, right? Mm-hmm. So, if we're going to have like a random Serpentor drawing for one of the covers on this issue, like that shouldn't be cover A because he's dead. Serpentor has nothing to do with this comic. That was just an example. So Mr. Maloney's cover here with Helix and Snake Eyes Don Marino is fun and exciting. One of them's upside down, one of them's right side up. They're both in the air. This feels very much like an image that would connect with a over-the-top like 90s action movie. That's sort of what I see and hear when I look at this cover, because there's a giant explosion behind them. I would prefer that someone in design at IDW let Snake Eyes' leg come in front of the G.I. Joe logo, but okay. It's still a very fun cover.
And I think when this one actually was made public, I tweeted at Netho Diaz and went, "Netho, look, someone's using your design for
Oh, was
Helix."
that you? I saw that.
Right.
Yeah, he was I definitely kept his references that they sent me. He was the one I focused on.
Because we've established on this podcast that Helix has a costume for the sort of quote Chuck Dixon continuity, as well as for the Real American Hero Larry Hama continuity. 2 different costumes.
Her toy is different too.
Right.
And it's the Kenneth Lowe cover features the previous design, which is the more toy-based design.
So the Kenneth Lowe, I want to talk about Kenneth Lowe. So Kenneth Lowe drew these backups in Silent Option. This was this side Larry Hama miniseries. The backups were not written by Larry Hama. They were written by Ryan Ferrier. And I liked that story, but I was sort of torn because I feel like the Real American Hero continuity is so synonymous with Larry Hama. If you're going to have extra story pages, Hama should also write those. Kenneth Lowe's interiors, and it was like only 4 or 6 pages per issue. His interiors were so gorgeous and thrilling. Like, this guy can draw.
And it's colors too. It's colors.
Yes. His brushwork, his inking it's this really unusual combination. It's loose, but it's quite precise. It's like he knows what he's doing. I don't even want to say it's gestural, because it's more structural. So it's just Snake Eyes Don Marino and Helix standing there, each of them in a pose sort of at the ready, with not really any background, just sort of some ink in the background to create some negative space. Color is understated and gorgeous. Both of them look, hot, like exciting, like hot. Like, this is a hot cover. I don't mean like Jim Lee X-Men 1991, though I like that too. If Kenneth Lowe could do more G.I. Joe, particularly more Larry Hama G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I wonder if he works digitally and traditionally, or what his process is. You guys haven't talked to him at all, or
no?
Yeah,
no. I mean, it looks. I mean, the coloring on it is very suggestive of, quite watery,
sure.
Watercolors.
The digital tools have gotten
exactly
amazing in the last couple of years. That this whole thing could be digital, and we might, unless we ask him, we might never know. Mark,
okay.
Mark, our guest wants to pick our next guest.
Yeah, I'm dying to know myself.
And then out of the remaining exclusive covers, Tim, if you weren't going to pick the Larry Hama cover, which one do you think you would be drawn towards?
The 2 Baroness ones are, in your words, sort of by the book, but I nothing against them. Prophet Director Destro, I'm a little torn on this character, because I feel like, I feel like it's a joke that's gone too far. Like he hasn't shown up in the comic, so I'm sort of not sure what he's doing on the cover. You know, it's like the Serpentor variant cover for this issue that doesn't exist. Like Destro's not on this cover, and Prophet director Destro's definitely not on this cover. All that said, I think John Jiang's the regular Destro cover, that is Destro's normal costume, there doesn't appear to be, I'm just looking at a thumbnail, it doesn't appear to be a logo, so it's just a virgin cover. And it's such a bold, compelling composition, which you tend not to get because you usually can't put a pair of eyes in the top third of a cover. Otherwise, Dawn's leg gets cut off by the logo. So I like this image, and there's a harshness to Destro's face. I will say that both these Destro covers and also the second Baroness exclusive cover have the like the sparks, like the fire. The bits of fire sparks shooting up from the bottom of the cover, which also showed up on all of the Rise of Cobra movie posters. And this is a thing that like is in like exciting images nowadays. Like you see this on covers, you see this in movie posters where some kind of action character is standing, and there are like little glints of like burning embers that have been added in Photoshop that like. It's like Channing Tatum holding this prop gun in front of a photographer. There was not also like a big like brazier of coals in front of him that someone like shook, and there's a little fan blowing like bits of glowing orange past him for the photographer. And I like it. I think we might be getting to where it's overdone in movie posters and covers.
Now I'm going to be looking for that everywhere I look.
So let's find out what actually happened in the story of this issue with a plot breakdown. In New Orleans, Dawn and Helix are tracking an Aspid helicopter in pursuit in their Vamp with aerial support from the Phantom. Dr. Mindbender and Crimson Guard Laura 343 are en route to Revanche, who are producing upgraded bats for Cobra Island casino staff at the Revanche facility, a geodesic dome on the site of a former locomotive shed. Patrolman McGovern of the Baton Rouge police force wants to pull over the Joes to see their credentials, but they can't mid-mission and instead launch a drone while stopped at the traffic lights, which follows the helicopter to the facility. Dawn and Helix break into the facility, putting the patrolman in his place and leaving him at the gates. Hal gives Cobra a tour of the facility and a demo of the offensive capabilities of the casino model, Betty, targeting hostiles with a rifle, mini launchers in her forearms, retractable titanium daggers. She spews napalm and demonstrates her personal combat abilities. Mindbender intends to create Cobra casinos all over the world, populated by a staff of the female robots. Spying all of this, Helix recognizes the close combat techniques as being her mum's unique style, but then a ceiling panel breaks loose, giving away their location. They egress, pursued by a Betty in full berserker mode. They fight to a fat standstill until the robot raises its armoured faceplate to lock onto the aerial drone, and Dawn seizes the moment to stick her through the head with a sword. And in the epilogue, Hal reveals himself to be Alpha 001 and his own plot to have his sleeper agents inside the Cobra Casino. It's a double sleeper! So... Talking points. Where would you like to begin, Tim? What's your suggestion?
Maybe the general comparison is to previous issues, which have all been spotlights. How this, some issues were more one character, some were a pair or a trio. You know, your comment on the last issue, which focused on a couple of Joes, ended up kind of being, though it was a flashback, sort of a regular issue, and it wasn't just a spotlight on a couple of Joes. It was several sets of characters. So though there are just two Joes in this, the opening scene has another Joe in it, and this is pushing forward some Cobra and Revanche plot. We had the introduction of the casino on Cobra Island when we went back to Cobra Island was it 1 issue ago or 2 issues ago?
2 issues ago.
Thank you. And we haven't checked in with the Blue Ninjas in a while.
Mm.
I think we need to say this out loud. This is Larry Hama's first meaty use of Helix in the main book. Right? So she was introduced in a different continuity. He started using her in a silent option. And I'm trying to think, has she shown up just sort of incidentally between silent option and now?
Incidentally. So she was sort of in amongst the ninja group. So she was sort of training with Snake Eyes at the very beginning of the Snake Hunt arc. And there were some sequences where all of the ninjas went out for a meal, and she was there for that.
That's right.
It was somebody's birthday, Sean's birthday, perhaps. Yeah, so sort of incidentally, but yeah, not really a main focus character. But yeah, I think she'll sort of exploring a little bit of that aspect of Helix, maybe being kind of a little bit emotionally disengaged and so on, and then sort of being welcomed into that kind of ninja family unit.
Yeah, I like her character a lot. I think there's lots of room to grow with her, I think.
There's a lovely bit of bluntness that I liked, which was when the police agent is talking to her. He goes, "I said pull over," and she just says, "Will you shut up?" It's just super blunt.
Yeah, that was specifically in the plot too. It says Helix tells him to shut up.
Yeah, so in Hama's plots, even though he's not writing out dialogue, he does lead with some indications of dialogue.
Yeah, there's some stuff that you can tell he really wants in there.
So we're pushing forward with the Cobra Casino. If we had suspected that it wasn't just a way to make money and create tourism on Cobra Island, if this feels sort of like all the terradromes popping up in was it issue 101, 103 when Cobra's putting terradromes everywhere?
Yeah, I know that.
So something like that again. And while I know that for some, the Blue Ninjas, the storyline is not a favorite, I do think there's something to be said for Larry Hama sort of taking the temperature of technology, and in the way that, like, in 1983, the brainwave scanner was fantasy. And now when it shows up in G.I. Joe, we're like, we've seen that. That's old news. But, like, that's where technology is now in the real world. And I think, say what you will about what has been done with the Blue Ninjas or how often they've shown up. I think the fact that Hama is using them as a faction and as a challenge for the Joes, and maybe as a threat for Cobra and everyone in addition. Like, he's not going to make a G.I. Joe story about, like, using your phone too much. Or, like, a Joe, back at the pit, someone's like, I can't get Mainframe to stop playing solitaire, like on his 1996 Mac, an issue like 150 of G.I. Joe. Like, not that. I think Hama is aware of what is happening in science and technology to some degree, and he's going to incorporate it a bit. And, we may never know, sort of like, are the rise of the machines in 5 or 20 or 30 years, and real humanity, not in the comic books, are in trouble. But I like that they're here, and I'm sort of waiting for them to turn on Cobra.
Yeah,
I'm also really excited to see. Remind me, what's our Crimson Guards person's name again?
Laura 343.
Laura.
Thank you. I'm glad to see her back because she's awesome. I've enjoyed all of her appearances so far.
I like her too.
I'm a little torn on Mindbender because I feel like there are so many other interesting individuals in Cobra, like, Xandar or Gristle or Scrap Iron, who could do something like this in a certain story. And Mindbender is definitely well used here. I'm less interested in him when he's, like, just there so Cobra Commander is not talking to himself. And I feel like that has happened more in the last 3 years of Real American Hero. Like, I want Mindbender to be specifically doing technological stuff.
Yep.
Like in his specialty, Master of Mind Control, which I take as interrogator. And I often incorrectly just call him Cobra's interrogator. So, whether he's very generically a mad scientist or he should be dealing with something specific like the brainwave scanner. This issue, sorry, the top line, my top line response to this issue was, overall, it felt like a transition issue. It felt like a middle chapter. And that's not as exciting to me as the occasional self-contained issue that has a real bang of a beginning, middle, and end. Or a like multi-chapter story, first chapter or final chapter, where things are getting set up or things are coming to a head. And this issue sort of felt short to me when I read it. Like, I know it's the standard 20 pages. I think on the reread, I'll realize that a lot did happen. And this issue is more character stuff than action and choreography.
Yeah, it's a slightly more linear than a lot of issues that we've got, where there's lots and lots of scenes and a very big cast of characters being juggled. We've got a thinner cast of characters and a more sort of more linear, following those cast from a beginning of the story to the end.
Yeah, I feel like I got lucky, honestly.
True. Like, for the artist.
It's not globe-trotting like all the G.I. Joes. Like, I've looked at all like the reference that they say. I read a lot of the comics and stuff, and there's like crazy stuff. Like, so many characters and references, and that would be so hard to do. But yeah, I definitely got off easy on this one.
Nice.
And yet you still have to draw difficult to draw things like a vamp, a stealth, the inside of a cockpit.
The vehicles and everything.
The whatever's inside this geodesic dome. So there's
but luckily there's so much stuff for like reference for G.I. Joe, like just all the toy websites and the Wikipedias and the Joepedias and all that stuff, and it's such a helpful thing. It makes it easier.
Did IDW provide you with whole issues or any kind of like packet of character images?
Yeah, lots of PDFs, a lot of the graphic novels and stuff. So I read all that, the silent, like my chronology in my head is all mixed up because I read them all mixed up, just looking for reference and stuff. But I read them all, but I'm not sure what happens when and what comes before what right now. I'm all mixed up. But I got a lot of.
I can assure you, no matter how many times I refer to the Serpentor variant cover on this issue, Serpentor is not alive
yet.
When did he die?
It was like
time
213.
A while back. Okay.
That was the second time he died.
Yeah, was it 74, 75, 76?
So my top line for this one is probably sort of, my initial reaction was sort of going, Blue Ninjas again, oh man. But mulling it over, sort of just like the original kind of Marvel era sort of G.I. Joe, the long story of that was basically, the Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow story, and that got resolved, and that kind of meant that some of that momentum and fizz of and excitement of that kind of era it felt like some of the drive kind of dropped out, and I think for the IDW era, the long story for the IDW era has been kind of that Blue Ninja story, and it has been left open and unresolved. There's still a lot of mystery there. We about the origins and the sort of the ongoing sort of threat of Alpha that we sort of saw at the beginning of the Snake Hunt arc, but then didn't sort of materialize as a threat during that story. So it has been left over, and the other side of my brain is like, I want plot threads to be resolved, and I want that long story to be played out. So there's kind of two aspects to it, sort of pulling in different directions. I know sort of Blue Ninjas generally haven't been massively well received by fans, but I think as we sort of draw towards the end point of the 300 issues, it does feel like that has to be an element of it, of that part of the story playing out. So, kind of makes sense. And if it wasn't resolved in some satisfying way, I think it would be the outstanding kind of aspect of the story. So there we go. It's kind of pulling me in two directions. There was a new mystery, I guess, introduced in the story as well. The Helix mystery of her mother's fighting style being adopted by Betty the robot. And I think back to Silent Option, there were strong hints that her mother was trained by the blind master. So yeah, a bit of a new mystery introduced about how Helix's mother is linked to this.
Yeah, Casey, what do you think the deal with Helix's mom is?
I don't know. It's kind of creepy, honestly. I was creeped out by it. Like, I thought that was actually like kind of the heaviest note of this issue. It's like, I don't know. It's like your mom's ghost. It's kind of creepy, I think. And like at the end, when she's fighting Betty in the swamp, and she looks at her when I'm looking at it right now, where like they cross weapons, for like that 1 second before the drone comes through at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought that'd be really heavy, like them just staring at each other down like that, and like I can't imagine what Helix was feeling, but when the dialogue was put over it, it makes it much more lighthearted, where she's saying "nice counter, but saw it coming, that one too." She's like laughing about it.
Right.
But I drew it more like heavy in my head. I was picturing it like I'm fighting this machine, but I'm thinking about my mom. Like, I think that would screw your head up a little bit, personally.
Those panels there together, I think it's quite effective. It's sort of showing the flashback and the present time sort of running together in parallel, that she's fighting Betty in the present, but then she's, at the same time she's flashing back and thinking of training against her mum. So yeah, as you say, she's fighting Betty, but she's also fighting her mum at the same time.
Yeah, those are probably my favorite panels, my most proud panels, those flashback ones that are linked with the present ones. Like, it's kind of like that kind of storytelling is kind of only possible in comics, I feel. That's why I love comics so much, Like, you can't really do that anywhere else.
Those two panels, right at the end of the episode, Mark may ask me what my favorite line of dialogue is. I do know my two favorite panels, and that is this third to last page of the issue, page 18, where, yes, we see in very clear profile from far away this fight choreography happening both in the past and also paralleled in the present. Something else that occurs to me sort of on the reread, having it in front of me open right now, those next two panels where Betty has brought her two arm swords down and Helix has stopped them from slashing her. Helix is it's almost cropped out of these two panels, or it's not sort of the main part of these two panels. Helix is keeping these two swords from chopping her up with her two pistols.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, we're used to sword fights where you can hold one sword at bay with your sword. Helix is doing it with two small sidearms.
Yeah, it's cool, huh? Very ninja.
She's a gun fu expert.
Gun ninja, yeah. Gun fu.
I had one question which maybe one of you can help me with. And it was the line of dialogue from Hal. He says, "This is our casino dealer model. We call her Betty. Haha, get it? I didn't get it. Can you help me?"
Like bet, like gamble.
Yeah.
Like you're placing a bet.
Oh, bet.
Oh, okay. So I did not get it the first time, and then later I thought, oh, is it because she's kind of a bat? And if you say bat really fast, you bat, Betty, bet. But yes, that's
just my theory. The bet is my theory. I don't know if it's right or not. I don't have inside information.
No, that makes sense. That makes most sense. Yeah, I was thinking Betty Boo, because
I also appreciate the restraint on the part of the writer to not explain the joke, because if you get it, you can think to yourself, how smart I am. And if you get it, and then like Mindbender explains it in the next panel, you're like, I know.
Yeah. A joke is not funny if it's explained.
I spy with my little eye.
Okay, I've got 3 I spies. Have you got any, Tim?
Yeah, I've got 1.5.
Okay, I'll go.
Curious.
I'll start with a low bar. So they're in the Vamp. They say this is Vamp 3 to Phantom 19er. And I thought, Vamp 3, is that a Vamp Mark 3? And then I looked it up, and there's a Vamp Mark 1, which is, the green, well-known one. There's the Vamp Mark 2, which is the kind of the more tan with the missile rack. And there's also a Vamp Mark 4, but there isn't a Vamp Mark 3 as far as I could tell. But then looking at the dialogue, it's Vamp 3, so that's just like a call sign that could just be a regular Vamp. So it looks like it's just a regular old Vamp 1 with a special drone missile rack on it.
That was half of I Spy for me. Have we seen a Vamp previously where we don't see the missiles or the machine guns on it, and we instead see a canister for like missiles or drones? Because when I saw in panel 1 of page 1, I thought, what is up with this Vamp? And then it occurred to me that like when the cop pulls them over, he's doing it because they look like they're about to commit a crime, or they've just committed a crime. And so Hama might be thinking, oh, if this is brimming with missiles, they're going to get pulled over. How can I sort of notch this down? But then I also thought, oh, well, maybe that's actually that's what a drone launcher looks like these days. Like when you see the G.I. Joe's Wolverine tank, real tanks right now that fire missiles, I don't think you can see that much of the missile sticking out of them. The sort of container for them is deeper, and you just see the hole, I think.
Yeah, this is based specifically on reference that Larry Hama sent. Like, It has 2 canisters like that on the back of a pickup truck, actually.
Okay.
And it shoots out a drone just like that. It's really cool.
Uh-huh. All
My
right.
other I Spy was Ghost Rider, the pilot of the G.I. Joe stealth jet. We haven't seen him in a little while. And not only does Hama not explain the Betty joke, he doesn't do the like someone can't remember Ghost Rider's name or doesn't want to say it out loud joke, which I like. At first I was like, oh, do the joke. And then I thought, no, that's fine. Like we know who this is. I can enjoy it without the joke being done. But actually my I Spy here is, man, look at how many Cobras Ghost Rider has shot down.
Oh, yeah.
Panel 2 of page 1.
I counted. He's 42.
Oh, yeah? That was my joke.
That's great. He's an ace.
Yeah, I put that in for fun. But it's funny that they did, in the emails, Tom and Megan and stuff were making that joke. So it did live on, it's just not in the script.
Aw.
Cool. He's a Cobra killing machine.
Well, I imagine he's been doing it a long time. He's got the great Phantom.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure he's taken out a good amount of them.
Yeah, that Ghost Rider, not them not mentioning that they can't remember his name. It's almost like an anti-Hammer time. It's like, stop.
Yeah.
We're not seeing the thing that we're used to seeing.
Maybe it's like Tomax and Zaymot, and you have to spell Hammer time backwards.
Okay, let's.
I'm sure I'll be back.
I'll record that and then I'll spin it backwards. Okay. My final I Spy was the robot introducing himself as I'm Hal, which obviously is a reference back to the computer that took over command of the spaceship in Stanley Kubrick's film 2001: A Space Odyssey. And apparently HAL stands for, in that film, heuristically programmed algorithmic computer. And pop fact, each letter in HAL precedes the letters IBM. HIABLM.
That's
cool.
fun. I have not quite an I Spy. I don't think this is a reference. This is I think a coincidence that I noticed, and I'm ascribing it to be a pattern. When Hal is describing Betty's features, and she has retractable razor-sharp titanium daggers that pop out of her wrists, and then a couple pages later, Hal says, now for a practical demonstration in full berserker mode. I couldn't help but think this is not a reference to Wolverine, who has sharp things that come out of his arms and who goes into a berserker rage in lots of X-Men comics. And of course, Larry Hama wrote lots of Wolverine comics. But still.
Yeah, it's just a good word, I think.
Could be. So Casey, is there any sort of little nuggets of detail that are hidden inside the book that you'd like to call out that we've not mentioned so far?
Or something that's the other thing that was really hard to draw that we haven't properly complimented you on.
Let me see real quick. I'm scrolling through it. I mean, just the dome was really hard, but once, like you're saying, if you went on that page with the background, if you had that page, the dome wouldn't be in the background because I added it as a layer digitally.
Right.
Some of them, the dome is drawn. Like when it's close up, it's drawn, like the beams and stuff. But when it's far away, that's all just a layer that's added digitally. Because right away I was like, I am not drawing that over and over again because it wouldn't look good. I could not do that justice and stuff. But let's see, anything else?
Is Hal supposed to look like anyone or remind us of anyone?
No, I just kind of drew a sleazy salesman, kind of style. Like he's always doing something with his hands, He's like never letting you rest. If you look at him, he's always doing something with his hands, always moving, always waving or something, or motioning at something, or like he's always moving, always selling. Like he's just a salesman, basically. Young go-getter, I'll say.
And Alpha 1 at the end, I guess, is that a slightly new look for that character? Yes, I feel like it's one of those characters that's always so complicated. It always looks slightly different every time it's drawn.
Exactly. Yeah, that was kind of the thing that's interesting. He doesn't have a look. He's always some different evolution or mutation in all the books that I've read. Mm-hmm. Like at one point he's like a pregnant robot, and then another one is like a spider like looking thing. So this was actually just kind of, they didn't tell me what he was going to look like basically at the end when he reveals himself. I was like, what does he look like? Does he look like any of the previous forms? And they're like, oh no, just do what you want. So I kind of just did stream of consciousness. I drew him kind of like, I don't know, like a router or, a server just connected to everything, because that's what I imagined he would be. And I drew him that way because I only had to draw him once. Like I could not draw that character over and over again in a comic, So whoever draws him next, I'm sure will cut some of those tubes out and
Casey,
whatever he looks like next.
Before you go, speaking of drawing something for G.I. Joe and over and over again, any chance we'll see you drawing G.I. Joe again?
I did do a page for the Silent Interlude book.
Aha! A scoop! Mark,
yeah,
we have a scoop.
It turned out beautiful, I gotta say. I'm very proud of it. It's me, just nice, heavy black inks and stuff, and some good old snake eyes. It's really nice, actually. I'll share it when. I don't know if I can share anything yet, but I'll show you guys when I can.
Yeah, a few of the artists have, I think, shared theirs, so there are some out there.
But yeah, that was really fun. That was an interesting challenge too, because you don't want to stray from the original because the storytelling is so good. Like you can't change any of the storytelling; it's laid out perfectly. So you just kind of got to put your own spin on it.
It's, I think
changing.
A real thought challenge of, how do you, you've got a classic there on your hands. How do you do something that isn't just tracing the original, which would be boring, but putting your own mark on it, but not going too far the other way, given the fact that the original is a classic.
And plus you're working on one page, so if you change something, then all the other pages are going to be messed up. Like either storytelling wise or like layout background wise.
I'm sort of waiting for one page like Snake Eyes to have a lot of belts and gears and pouches on him, and then the next page it's like sort of streamlined 1984 Snake Eyes.
I'm curious to see how it turns out.
When did you draw the page?
Not too long ago, pretty much right after I finished the book. So it was a nice little chaser.
Right after,
but it's sitting here right next to me actually.
Is that page for sale? Oh man, Mark, the work it would take from some intrepid collector to get all of these pages together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, from all the different artists, that'd be amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you get what, like 20? Is it 22 pages? How many pages were there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get
22.
21, and then there's one artist that's already sold it or just won't let it go.
Then it turns into a globe-trotting chase.
Or someone drew it digitally and there is no object.
Oh yeah, that too. I'm sure a lot of them will be digital.
Cool. So I think that was I Spy.
If you guys want to do the one where you point out the faults, we'll do that real quick. I got to get that out in the open.
So error detected.
Error detected. Error detected. No prize incoming.
I didn't actually have anything.
Oh.
I'm firing nothing here. Sorry.
My goodness.
I
I know Tim's got something.
No. I also didn't have anything. I will admit to reading this issue a little closer to recording time and a little faster than some of our episodes. But I do think I have a pretty good frown. I mean, for when I read this favorite comic book series of mine.
Definitely. That's hope.
The closest to an error detected, which is, more sort of pushing into no prize territory, is a question that I saw online, which was this patrolman. What did I call him? Patrolman McGovern. How come he's sort of just left there at the gates and he doesn't get back up? Given this sort of paramilitary threat on his doorstep.
Yeah, he was kind of. I found him like comedic in a way.
Yeah. It's.
I guess
it's the comic relief touch, really, isn't it?
Yeah, even though time passes, like they come out later and it's darker, but he's still there. Like I imagine him. I don't know. He's just kind of impotent, I guess you could say.
I do have. This is not an error detected. I think this is a factual style decision that I would make differently. So everyone's calling her Dawn. I'm doing it too, and that's who she is. That's sort of how we know her, and that is how she was introduced. Because initially she was just some kid in the Cobra Youth, and she didn't have a code name, much less any costume or sort of G.I. Joe identity. But Helix calls her Dawn at least 2 times, and this is a mission.
Yeah,
and
no
I feel
code name.
Yeah. She has a code name. She's Snake Eyes. I know that sort of no one. Most of the fandom either isn't accepting it, or there's several decades of momentum against this rolling off your tongue. But it's like when I team up all those issues with Shipwreck, no one's like, stop the blue ninjas, Hector.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But
so,
we got that slightly nuanced dimension to it as well, that we've got another Snake Eyes running around Throwdown, and they tweaked his naming convention. Sort of, was it in the run up to Snake Hunt, where they said, when we're out in missions, make sure you always call him Snake Eyes and not Sean or Throwdown. So yeah, the fact that there's 2 Snake Eyes makes it a bit harder. Yeah,
I'm rooting for Dawn. I hope that I think she's a great Snake Eyes. I like Helix a lot. I think they're 2 cool characters and they're cool together. But I do hope that Dawn is Snake Eyes, for real. And she is right now. And I hope she gets the credit she deserves.
Yeah, no mention of Snake Eyes in the issue in terms of calling Dawn by that name, but also no hint of that.
Oh, really?
Snake Eyes personality sort of coming through in terms of that download of Snake Eyes' memories into Dawn's brain that's previously has surfaced.
They don't say Snake Eyes at all, huh? They don't call her that at all?
If they did, I missed it.
I don't think they do. This is something that happens in comics where it's like, how many Thors are there? It's like, well, there's Thor Odin's son, there's Thor Jane Foster. It's like, well, how many Iron Mans are there? It's like, well, Rhodey was Iron Man for a while, and then he got a different name and a different armor. Like, how many Batmans are there right now? Like, in DC Comics this month, there are 2 different Batmans, and in Marvel Comics this month, there are 3 different Spider-Mans, and they're all just called the title is Miles Morales, so the title is like Ben Reilly Spider-Man. And in the story, I'm not sure. I think when their costumes are on, they're just called Spider-Man. So there is some comic book sort of rule, logic, precedent already set here. And I think what I really want, more than Dawn to get called by the right name or Throwdown to get called by the right name, is more stories for these characters to be able to become themselves and become favorites. And original Snake Eyes has 34 years of history built up as the favorite character and also just that much time. And it's hard to take a new version of something, of an analog like Dawn. You know, that's going to be an uphill climb for, you know, the people who make G.I. Joe and all the fans. Which is why, as I've said in previous episodes, if this comic were just published weekly, there'd be so many more pages and so many more stories. And, you know, Dawn could show up in half of them, and very quickly we could rack up a whole bunch of stories where Snake Eyes Dawn Marino gets to be extra interesting and cool and talented, and people would see her as that much more her own character.
Yeah, it just takes time and screen time. Like,
yeah.
Not screen, but this
panel
is definitely
panel
the right
space.
step. Yeah, panel space.
Yeah.
You get that out there. But I'm glad that this came out, because this is exactly what they needed, I think.
And, you know, like going back to the annual from a couple years ago, that where she's on the cover. I guess one of the covers she's on the cover, and the other cover is Duke. You know, the main story is her sort of more, hasn't some time passed, and now she's actually joining the team. Am I remembering that correctly, Mark?
Yeah,
the story that Kei Zama drew.
That's the one where she's doing a training sequence just before she then joins the Joe team.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Casey, where can people find you on the internet?
I've kind of been off social media a little bit, but I do have an Instagram, Case Malone, and I got a Patreon account. I think it's my name, Casey Maloney, and then my just general website is just CaseyMaloneyArt.com. But I actually don't have too much comic work up there. It's mostly just paintings and stuff on the main website, but I'll update it soon. But that's about it. Those 3 places.
If a G.I. Joe art collector wanted to commission you to draw or paint something G.I. Joe, or is that a possibility?
Sure, if it's legal, if I can get away with that. I don't know if I'd get sued or anything, but
I don't think you would.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
I am not a lawyer, but I read comics.
My website has a contact page where you can email me and stuff on CaseyMaloneyArt.com. So cool. You can find me. I'm out there.
Are you on Facebook?
I'm connected, so like sometimes I'll post and I'll go to Facebook, but I don't go on Facebook.
Okay.
Fair dues. So yeah, thank you, Casey, for joining us. You've got pro engagements to dash off to. So we'll wrap up the remainder of the show without you. But yeah, thanks for joining us and letting us know all about the background details on how this issue came about.
Thank you for having me. That was very fun. It was nice to talk to you guys. It's nice to talk about this stuff too, because I sit around drawing it and thinking it in my head and not talking about it. So it's nice to get it out in the open.
And we look forward to your page as part of the 40th anniversary special in April.
Yeah, I hope you guys like it. I like it, so hope you do too.
Yeah, and I was going to say the cat is probably a very good listener, but you know, is her criticism is a bit too cutting. So you don't like
they
to
can
overshare.
Be jerks.
Cool. It's cool beans.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
So thanks to Casey for joining us, and let's Charlie Mike with the remaining features for this issue. Hammer time.
Stop. Hammer time.
Time to beat the soles of your boots with my face. Sucking chest wounds, red ninjas, brain scanners, rubber oozes, blue ninjas. And then some more sucking chest wounds. Hammer time.
Page 2, Helix says that cop is giving us the hairy eyeball. and both her dialogue here and Dawn's dialogue here, the font is smaller, showing that they're whispering or speaking quietly. But we have seen hairy eyeball in Larry Hama comics before.
True, and it's such an evocative expression, isn't it? And I looked it up to see what people said about it. It seems to have cropped up as an Americanism in the mid '60s, and refers to a hostile, suspicious, or disapproving look. But it can also mean almost exactly the opposite. It's also been used to mean flirtatious, like sort of fluttering eyelids. So, what else have we have? I can't not mention in Hammer Time the fact that we've got the return of the Blue Ninjas in terms of a key story point for the IDW. It is the Hammerist of Hammer-isms.
This isn't. I don't know. This is quite a Hama Time, or this observation that I make sometimes, where Larry Hama is aware of the sort of physical nuts and bolts of a story.
Mm-hmm.
But on both the first page and also a late page in this issue, there's some dialogue that I think is very much that. So in panel 3 of the whole comic, page 1, Ghost Rider says, "The target may be using New Orleans as a waypoint to follow the river upstream. Baton Rouge could be the possible destination, and that would make sense because of the Revanche connection," right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Hama is aware of where characters are in a scene, right? Like a fight, but also this is a vehicle-based line, or it was initially, and these characters are covering great distances, and there is motivating logic to how, say, the Joes follow the Cobras to this factory, to this lab, and then similarly.
Yeah, just in the next panel to the one you were talking about, they're flying the Aspid, and they say, "We're passing the Delta gold refinery on the Mississippi. This is the last waypoint before Baton Rouge." And they've talked about before in previous issues, sort of described using kind of landmarks as a way of kind of navigating when you're flying an airborne vehicle. So yeah, a real sense of kind of, I guess, how a pilot might use geography to navigate, but also I guess a real sense of probably genuine Baton Rouge geography of what is where. And I bet you that locomotive shed it was probably spotted somewhere on Google. That is probably a real life roundhouse of a former locomotive railroad.
Yeah. Another bit of dialogue like that for me, where I feel this is half of that thing where I think Hama is aware of the nuts and bolts of these characters and vehicles moving from point A to point B to point C, but also this stuff is all conspicuous because these costumes and these vehicles are outlandish.
Mm-hmm.
But on page 3, Ghost Rider continues, "Even in super stealth mode, I can't be loitering over a metropolitan area. I'm peeling off here and recommending you launch a drone."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he and the two Joes and the Vamp are sort of triangulating with how they're going to finish tracking Mindbender in the Aspid. And like, I love this bit of dialogue because it's not my favorite line. It's my second favorite line, because even though it is a stealth jet, and even though whatever super stealth mode is, I don't know if that's a call out from the toy box for the stealth, if that's a real thing, or if that's a little G.I. Joe-ism that Hama is inventing for this scene, right? Whatever it is, it sounds great, but also what Hama is doing here is he's giving a limitation to the characters, that the Vamp can't just go anywhere, that this ninja and this computer brain woman can't just get into any building or can't do it perfectly, right? They like a piece of the roof falls in because they were careless, and so they get discovered. But I don't think I have any other
Hammer-isms.
Hama-isms.
You'll probably kick yourself for this, but my observation as well is that we're starting in media res, in the midst of things. So we're kind of mid-mission already, following the Vamp and the Phantom en route, tracking this helicopter. We didn't get all of the briefing at the beginning of the thing of saying, okay, Dawn and Helix, you're working together now, and we're going to assign you a Vamp, and here's your aerial support, and we've heard intel that there's a helicopter on blah blah blah. It's bam, we're in the car. They're right in the middle of things, and Hammer makes it look easy because he's been doing this a long time and he's very good at it. But a lot of writers, particularly sort of starting out, they don't do that. They do have to do the whole build, and it's generally more, I think, effective to put you in the middle of it. It sort of grabs you right from the outset.
Quote of the week, 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 quote of the week.
Do you have a favorite line of dialogue?
I had written down about the hairy eyebrow, so I didn't have a backup. Tim, do you have one?
Yeah, before I do that, I want to do my favorite sound effects.
Let's talk about SFX, baby. Let's talk about pew and scree. Let's talk about shooting gun things and the sound effects. We'll see. Let's talk about SFX. Let's talk about SFX.
Once again, Neil Yotake does a really great job with one or two sound effects. The page where, right after the flashback to Helix training with her mom as a kid, we're looking up. Helix and Dawn are looking through the hole in the roof, and a piece of the inner panel of the ceiling breaks loose and is falling toward us. And then in the second panel, it has landed. SHKK, the sound of a piece of inner roof paneling breaking off and perhaps also sliding against another piece as it enters the space. And then KA-CHUNK, right? So shook and ka-chunk as that roof panel lands, and then Hal looks up and says, "Intruder alert!" But Neil Yotake puts both of these sound effects into perspective, and particularly with the ka-chunk, he puts it into a really forced, sort of rounded, a very pinched 1-point perspective, even though it's curved. So it's receding from left to right on the left side, and then from right to left on the right side. And it feels very much, it looks and feels very much of a piece of the piece that is landing right there. So I really like both of those decisions. And then going back on page 3 of the comic, when the vamp pops a wheelie, which I feel like that's just Larry Hama and or Casey Maloney just sort of having a joke, like having a laugh with us, because I don't think a vamp can do that. I don't think. And
when was the last time you saw a car pop a wheelie at the traffic lights?
Right. Like, to do that, you need like a certain amount of weight distribution in your vehicle. It has to have a certain acceleration, the friction of the tire or tires on the road. This is really funny. It's almost dumb. It's so funny.
I guess there's the drone. Maybe if they're simultaneously shooting that drone out the back of the vehicle as well as driving away, I don't know.
But there's a big sound effect there. Scree. My favorite line in this whole issue, it's the last panel of the second to last page. So Snake Eyes Dawn Marino has just impaled her sword through the robot's head. The robot falls into the swamp, and Dawn says Mainframe will be wanting to dissect this ASAP. And Helix says, in 2-word balloons, we have to winch the vamp back on its wheels and haul this thing to an airstrip where she can be airlifted to the pit. And just like that earlier bit of dialogue about peeling off the stealth and waypoint and halfway, it's like, oh, right, the vamp got flipped over and also blew up, or got flipped over and is slightly damaged. It's too slow for these Joes to drive this broken robot cross country. So I love that, like, that one sentence, like, that could be a whole 3-page scene in the next issue, or if, something like Special Missions were running concurrently, if this was 1987, it's like, oh, and see how Lift Ticket and Mainframe, like, get into an adventure, as they, like, take, like, it's like, oh, we actually changed the plans. We got this broken Betty robot onto a Tomahawk, and we're flying that back to the pit. I just love in that bit of dialogue that it's like, oh, right, we have this vehicle, it flipped over, we're in the swamp, it's got a winch, right? You all know how excited I was about all the winching in the previous issue. So much winching in the previous issue. So because it's not like a cool badass line, not because it's some like reveal of backstory, it is a very smart nuts and bolts line that expands the sort of the rest of this scene and the story that would perhaps continue if this issue were magically like double-sized and had another 20 pages. It's like, no, we're going to follow up on this. In an issue or two, we're going to be back at the pit. And I bet Hawk and Psych Out and Dial Tone and Mainframe and Lady J are going to be standing around some like table, and there are going to be Blue Ninja parts, and they're going to be talking, and I can't wait.
Excellent. There was one more line that I did write down, but that was for a Larry Hama colloquialism.
There used to be a pudding that was over-egged. You know the pudding. You know the pudding. At first it was British, but then it was Commonwealth. You know the pudding. You know the pudding. But now there's a new player in town, a comic book writer of some renown. He's using real world examples and peppering the issues with lots of samples. It's a Larry Hama colloquialism. He's talking G.I. Joe and all its heroism. Can you guess what it is? Is it something new? Now listen as Larry drops a slice of real life on you.
So I wrote down TCB from We Have to TCB here, and it would help if you could stay put and make sure nobody escapes this way.
This one did not have an asterisk.
So did you immediately know what TCB was?
No, but I hoped you would.
So I don't think I got this one without the Google.
Is it the first 3 letters of TCBY?
The country's best yogurt, TCBY.
She wants frozen yogurt, right?
It could be that. It could be the yogurt thing. I thought it was take care of business. We have to take care of business here, and it would help if you could just stay put and make sure nobody escapes that away. So there we go. TCB. Not an abbreviation that I think I've seen before, but makes sense.
The country's best yogurt, TCBY. Okay. That's actually that means the show's over. I sang a jingle. The episode's over. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
So that's TCBY is the yogurt, right, Tim?
Yeah, it's a chain. I think it's still around. I think there was one, I don't know, near where my brother went to school. TCBY, the country's best yogurt.
Oh, that's what it stands for. TCBY.
Frozen yogurt. I do know that at some upcoming G.I. Joe convention, hopefully this summer, if traveling and being in shared public spaces feels safe and is not like canceled or delayed and things are looking good, in addition to hopefully some Joe fans will sit down and destroy me in the new G.I. Joe deck building game, we can also go out for frozen yogurt as a reference to issue 289.
Very good. So what was next? It was Yo Joeage score.
I'll go first because I think you're going to be higher than me.
Okay.
So I respect that Casey Maloney likes the inking job that Maria Keene did on this issue. I thought it was good. I couldn't help but think, based on the cover and the interior pages, that the inking is good, but I do wish that Casey Maloney also inked this issue. Schedules are what they are, and editors got to get the books out. But as a general rule, you are your own best inker, and I like the art in this issue. But looking at the cover, it's subtle, but I really would have loved to see Casey Maloney ink this. And though there's a lot to like about this issue, that point that I made at the beginning when we sort of did our overview of the issue, it does feel like a middle chapter. Mm-hmm. And considering that the Blue Ninjas are back, and I do want them to come back, and I agree with you, I think they need to come back, and I want to see a cool wrap up. And I do like that we're checking back in with the casino on Cobra Island. What we do see of the Blue Ninjas here, it somewhat excited me, didn't thrill me. So I'm going to say 5 or 6. It's like a good issue of G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair.
Another reason why this issue loses half a point for me is that though there is a letters page, there aren't any letters.
Yeah,
and
it's a bit of a shame.
And if Tom Waltz or editor Megan Brown, because they are short on time, because this is a hard book to put together, because the license is expiring at the end of the year, and what's more important is getting some cool cover artist for issue 298 and 299 right now than like culling some emails, or maybe just no one sent any emails. I know I sent an email, but about the Saturday morning book. But and Waltz and Brown are totally allowed to hype upcoming books in the letters page. Yet, right after letters page, there are several pages of ads, and I think that's the better place to let G.I. Joe fans know that this cool 40th anniversary special is coming, and oh, here's the cover. I would much rather have a letter or two, because that's to me is part of the value of the $3.99. I get 20 pages of art and story, and not since the beginning, not since issue 155, but for much of the IDW run, I've also gotten a letters page. And fewer people are writing letters. It's sort of a different experience because it's not kids. Like a lot of the letters in the 80s book were kids. It's sort of more letters like a letter that I would write. It's like, I'm a fan. I've been reading this for a while. This was really neat. Thanks. It's like, yeah, sort of affirming. But even if it's just one of those, and Tom Waltz is like spending a paragraph like saying how excited he is about the issue that you just read, it's like Lethal Larry Hama and Courageous Casey Maloney and Magnificent Maria Keene and Jolly J. Brown. Right? I want letters. I want letters.
Naughty Neil Utake. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point about the value proposition, because these books are collected as trades, and the trades are generally lower cost per issue, and also have lots of bonus features in the back, like all of the variant covers, and you only get often only get a single cover on the monthly books. So why do you get the monthly books? I guess it's to support the brand. You get it much sooner than waiting for trade. But you also get something that doesn't get reprinted generally, which is the letters page. So having interesting content in the letters page is, I think, a key part of the value proposition for a monthly book, as opposed to waiting for the trade.
If I want to read a Hasbro licensed 80s property IDW toy based comic that doesn't have a letters page, I'll read Transformers.
Okay. Specific. I'm probably not a million miles away from that opinion, really. I think most of what you're saying is definitely chiming. I was pleased that we're back in the regular story and it's getting propelled forward. Like you say, it sort of did feel a bit more like the middle of a story, which is probably slightly less exciting. I'm slightly divided on the Blue Ninjas point. I think it is an important part of the IDW storyline that Larry has created, and it really, I guess, as that wider piece does need to be resolved. But at the same time, it was a bit like Blue Ninjas again. Generally, it is the issues without the Blue Ninjas that have been my preferred stories. I can see it, but I have enjoyed issues that are a little bit more grounded, a bit more gritty without the Blue Ninja shenanigans in them. I think Casey's done a good job with the art. The storytelling is super clear. That never any room for confusion as to what's going on. In terms of style, I probably do like things skewing slightly grittier, but that's not to detract from what he's done here. So I think for me, probably the main thing that's just pulling this back a little bit is just the overall story just wasn't quite type of story that are my very favourites. So probably the score would suffer for that. So still enjoyable. Love to see the G.I. Joe book regardless, and love to see the overall story moving forward after some detours. So I feel like Alan Sugar sort of about to fire someone here and ping-ponging between things. But yeah, I think I'll land on about 6.5 overall, which, as Chief always says, anything above a 5 is never a regrettable read. So yeah, did enjoy it, but just on the spectrum, I think not quite up there with my favourite stories.
What could also happen is if Don Marino, Helix, Blue Ninja stuff, if more of this happens in a satisfying way in a future issue, this issue will look better in hindsight. Who is Alan Sugar?
So Alan Sugar is the UK host of The Apprentice.
Okay.
Broadcast by the BBC since 2005, and it was devised after the success of the American original. So, okay, it's the British. It doesn't always go this way. It's normally a British program that spins off into an American one, but on this occasion, it was the British adaptation of the American series. But yeah, running since 2005. So that's 17 years, I guess, that it's been going with the same man at the helm. I don't know what you'd call the role, but the businessman in his suit and tie, Alan Sugar. Yeah. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside. But yeah, a big phenomenon in terms of British TV. So one of the biggest shows, I think, one of the most popular shows. So I think that is us done talking the Dawn Helix Spotlight issue. And next time on Talking Joe, we will be covering the very next issue, 290, which is an October Guard Spotlight issue. Looking forward to that one for sure. And seeing if we can find out more about the mystery of the return of the October Guard. We are also continuing to cover our look back at the disavowed era of G.I. Joe from Devil's Due, and specifically we are covering the issues from Brandon Joa. So tune into that for our discussion of what G.I. Joe was looking like back in 2004. So Tim, where can people find you?
My comic book store in Somerville, Massachusetts is Hub Comics, and my blog for G.I. Joe thoughts and images is arealamericanbook.com.
Excellent. And do seek out Tim's blog for his thoughts on G.I. Joe Saturday Morning Ventures #1. Excellent little bit of insight. Very, very well written, and some little quality nuggets of a real American Tim's lens. There we go. And you can find us on the usual places. TalkingJoe.co.uk is the website that has links to all of those places. So we've got a Facebook site with discussions of various G.I. Joe shenanigans. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and also on Patreon. A big thanks to all of our backers, Richard, Sam, Jay, Bill, Christopher, and Justin, who are all getting early access to episodes, as well as some exclusive content. So that's us done. But remember,
nobody beats Talking Joe, a real American podcast,
with a guy from England and around the world, specifically over there in that place they call America. Laters. Have you listened to any episodes of Talking Joe thus far, Casey?
Yeah, I was listening to a couple of them while I was drawing the comic, actually, after you guys reached out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they were fun.
Huh.
So,
nice.
Yeah, I started thinking about you guys as I was drawing after a while. I was like, what would Tim and Mark like in this?
Yeah.
I was thinking Helix sort of looked like Mark on page 16 and 17.
That sort of perky quality, yeah.